Yeah. Welcome to
All
another
right.
episode of Unc Phew, man. Let's talk about it, man. How you doing, Unc?
Not too bad,
Unc
man. It's
football,
a
how you
beautiful
doing?
Sunday. It's a beautiful
Mm,
Sunday. I'm doing well. I'm looking forward to watching my Steelers today. So, yes, indeed.
let's go. Let's go.
Mhm.
If I got the intel, man, I would have brought my Ed Reed jersey, man. Damn. But I like it.
Yeah,
It's all
yeah.
good.
You-
It's all good.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, boy, your Ravens look like they're firing on all cylinders right now. They're finally looking like the team everybody thought they could be this year, and yeah, they're a formidable
Mm,
foe right now.
I'm telling you right now, if the playoffs started today, right? Every team in the AFC North would make it. Let's start off with that. Every team
Really,
in the
huh?
AFC North. Of course, my
Everybody,
Ravens
everybody.
are. Yeah, man. You got the
Yeah,
Ravens at 7-2. You got I believe it's the Steelers at 5-3.
yep,
Cleveland at 5-3. I think Cleveland might be even a
yeah,
step above. And then you got also the Bengals at 5-3. If the playoffs started right now,
yeah.
every AFC North team would be inside. And
So
my
that,
Ravens, I can't lie, we're doing really good. I'm happy.
yeah, I actually look. Actually, I looked at the top seven in each conference this past week, and yeah, I'm pretty sure you're correct on that. All of the
Yeah.
AFC North is in there at the moment, and this is something we talked about at the beginning of the year that it was going to be, the AFC North was going to be the black and blue division, and it's
Yeah.
surely playing out to be that way right now. And with the Bengals on an upswing at the moment, it's about to
Mhm.
get really, really interesting. I
Man,
feel, yeah.
this time of the year, November to December, right? These 2 months, I think, are the best football. Why? Because you have divisional matchups and you have
Hmm.
games that matter to the end of the season. Every game, you feel that pressure coming in, that pressure cookers coming in, and that leads
Yeah,
to our first game that we got to talk about to review on last week. Eagles beat the Cowboys in
yeah.
shocking fashion, man. How did you feel about that game? Personally, I loved that game. It was very
Well,
competitive. It was very good. And I
mm,
feel like the wrong team won because the Cowboys were playing off the chain. This might have been Dak's best game. I really liked it, bro. You know what I mean?
uh,
How did
statistically
you feel
speaking, I
about
think it was Dak's best game. He had three or four touchdowns and no picks, so that's good. But he got
Mhm.
sacked a few times. All right, so Philly played more
No
efficiently.
pick. Let's
Yeah,
talk about no pick. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, no picks, right? But he did get sacked, so it's not like Philly didn't get in there and get at him. They did, but
Yeah.
yeah. To his credit, Dak had an excellent game, but it wasn't good enough. And Jalen Hurts, on the other hand, had a far more efficient game. He had only five incompletions on far
Mhm.
fewer passes and far fewer yards, but he made them count. And
Yes, he did.
yeah, yeah, they made it count. And yeah, Philly just proved that they are a championship caliber team because that was a game that they didn't need to win, but they really wanted it. It was a divisional matchup and also just a statement game. It was a statement game for their division, and also to just sort of like further stymie any pretensions Dallas might have towards the playoffs. But Dallas, I believe, is in the top seven though of the NFC side of things. So I'm pretty sure that they're in a playoff position right now as well. So it was an important game for Dallas to win, and they did not. It was an important game for Philly to win, and they pulled it off. To keep themselves at 8-1, looking like a championship contender. I'm not hearing you.
Test. Can you hear me, my G? Am I good?
I can hear you now.
Perfect. I had to play around with the mic. Little technical issues. By the way, if y'all are coming in to tune in or you're watching the replay, my people, slap the like, man. We want to grow this thing. And put in the comments, man, how y'all feel about some of our
Yeah.
predictions, what we're talking about. Are you more on the Unc side? Are you more on his side? Are you more on my side? We're doing a little yin and yang we're going to be playing today, man. But we're going to talk about it definitely about how the Cowboys and the Eagles, how big of a matchup that was and how that goes into our top 5 power rankings. But let's talk about the Bengals smacking. I'm not even talking about beating, smacking the Buffalo Bills. It was a belt to ass, my guy. How did you feel about that game,
Sorry,
man?
which game are you talking about now?
We're talking about Bengals versus Buffalo Bills, man.
Oh
Did you get
yeah,
a chance to watch it, or did you see some highlights? What did you?
yeah, yeah.
What were your
I
thoughts? Because those are two big time teams in the AFC, man. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, it wasn't a complete smackdown. When the language confused me at first, I thought you were talking about Baltimore, the Baltimore and Seattle game. Yeah,
Oh,
no,
it's Seahawks, Baltimore Seahawks. That was a
yeah.
SmackDown, yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think the
That was a
Bengals,
you're right. You're right.
I think the Bengals in another statement type of a game, but this time sort of
Mm-hmm.
for the AFC.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think the Bengals once again stake their claim to be the superior AFC team over the
Yo.
Bills, right? Because if you
Yes,
look at
sir.
who's come out of the AFC Conference Championship games over the last few years, it's been the Bengals, the Bengals, the Bills, and the Chiefs. Right, so those are the teams that have consistently come out of the AFC
Yeah,
Conference.
them three.
So yeah, so for the Bengals to
Mm-hmm.
smack down the Bills again, last time they did it, it was that terrible game with Harmon getting injured. But this has become a trend now,
Yeah.
where the Bengals. This has become a trend now, whether it's at home or on the road, where the Bengals have taken care of the Bills. So I think they're staking their
Yeah.
claim once again to be the superior team and the rightful team that should probably face the Chiefs at the end of the day, assuming the Steelers or the Ravens don't get there. Uh, so, so you see what I'm talking about as far as like
Yes,
year
sir.
over
Yes,
year
sir.
hierarchy, year over year hierarchy. The Bengals are
Yeah.
making a claim. The Bengals are making their annual claim for top 3 status.
And that gets really interesting because you're right. The last time the Bills played the Bengals, I think it was like the divisional round of the playoffs,
It was in
and Josh
January.
Allen had a terrible game.
Yeah,
Him
they
and
didn't.
Stephon Diggs were fighting, and
They did.
even this game, him and Stephon Diggs, they didn't even look like the Bengals won 24-18,
Yeah.
but it didn't even look like him and Stephon were in sync. Like they looked like they had some sideline arguments. This is becoming like
Mm-hmm.
a yearly thing, fam. It's
And,
like
and,
I
and,
don't
and
know.
the and the one difference again, right? Josh was
Mm,
the guy with the pick. So turnovers
no.
from Josh Allen are becoming a thing. Um,
Mm,
he's a serviceable fantasy quarterback. He's great for that. But as a winning quarterback,
no.
yeah. The Bills start to have to start asking themselves. Because these other teams, these other top teams in the AFC are starting to consistently beat the Bills.
Oh man, definitely. Like if the Bills were to play, let's say the Jags, I think the Jags would destroy them. If they were to play, obviously, even Cleveland, even the Steelers, I think the Steelers would have a
The
good time
Jets,
beating yes. If Zach Wilson didn't really, throw the ball to the
yeah,
other team, I think the
that's
Jets would
it.
beat the Bills, which they did. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They did
I
in
think
week
I was going
one.
to say they did earlier this year. So yeah, we've
Yeah.
seen it time and time again, just exactly how beatable the Bills are.
Oh, 100%. And you know a team that is beatable, the Seattle Seahawks. They got smacked. Now
Yeah,
we're talking about smacking. Now we're talking about real smacking.
yeah,
37-3, man.
they
That
got
was a
abused.
beat down. And bro, it was I was watching the game. I watched every minute of it. The
Yeah, me
game was
too,
basically done it was done in the second quarter, bro.
dude.
It was in the second quarter, it was over.
It was
It's like,
it
what?
was done. It was done as soon as the Bengals got a touchdown.
Oh yeah, it was over. It was over. It was
Because
over.
yeah, because Seattle scored was one field goal in the second quarter. Pathetic.
Defensive domination, man. The
Yeah.
defensive domination from start to finish.
So
And the run
yeah.
game, as a Ravens fan, I like seeing the run game being used. And
Whoa,
what they
dude.
did is they didn't, force Lamar to run, or Lamar didn't have a lot of designed runs. He scrambled when needed. but it was by this guy Keaton Mitchell. I think he
Yeah.
has a bright future, and Gus Edwards with the goal line touchdowns as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I actually wanted to talk about that
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore backfield because that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you had Lamar. Lamar had 10 carries for 60 yards, so he did his thing as per usual. Gus
Yes, sir.
Edwards was about the same. He had very few carries, but he made them count. 2 touchdowns, 50 yards on just 5 carries. But this
Mm-hmm.
Wheaton guy ran for
Mm-hmm.
13 and like 138 overall yards. No
Yeah, nine
touchdown.
carries for 138. He had one touchdown, but he killed it on nine
Right. He
carries.
did have one touchdown. Okay. So,
Yeah, he
yeah,
had one
big
touchdown.
game, big game. So,
Mhm.
spoiler alert, talking about, eventually when we get to fantasy players,
Yeah,
put him,
that's the guy.
he's one of the few, if you're in a deep league,
Oh
he's
yeah.
one of the few sort of bright spots that's perked up that's not already picked up. So
Keaton
that we
Mitchell.
can get. It's questionable as to whether or not he's going to play this week, though. He might have he got dinged up a bit last week, so he may or not play this week, although
Oh,
he is scheduled. As of right now, he's scheduled to play.
okay,
But
good.
the thing I find interesting about this, with the emergence of Wheaton, is that there were
Mhm.
questions who would rise up between Justin Hall and Gus Edwards, and Gus
Yes.
Edwards has clearly made his claim to be the end zone TD guy, the short
Mhm.
yardage guy. But yeah, Gus Edwards is looking like a very, very serviceable running back right now. And
Yes, he
I've
is.
been
Yes, he is.
I, I've been using him as my second running back. And it hurt for a little bit at the beginning of the year, but he's certainly getting into a groove now, producing a lot.
Yes, I think the Todd Monken offense, at least what's happening right now, is that it's spread, of course. It's West Coast is very pass dependent, but I like how he adapts to the team, how he's willing as an offensive coordinator to see the gaps because he saw that, the Seahawks obviously they have a great group of DBs. I think even one of their young DBs right there, Witherspoon, I think he's in contention for
Mhm.
defensive rookie of the year. I really like how he plays, but he saw that the DBs are great, but the linebackers are lacking, so he forced the run game. I think the Ravens rushed
Well,
40, maybe close to 45 times, and only threw 27 times. So
yeah,
he focuses on finding the problems in the defenses and exploiting it because you'll have a Lamar game where he'll throw 30 times or 35 times,
yeah,
or a game like this where he's going to carry the football more, hand it off in the backfield. And Gus Edward is the lead back for sure.
yeah.
He's been
People
balling. Yeah.
people forget that the West Coast offense, it sounds exotic, and it draws up images of Montana to Rice and Steve
Mm,
Young to Rice, for tons and tons of passing yards. But people
yeah.
forget that the West Coast offense is predicated on a strong running game,
Yeah.
like so many football offenses. But yeah, the West Coast offense cannot function unless you've got some dominance in the running game. And think of the guy Jonathan Taylor for San
Yeah.
Francisco back in the day.
Mhm.
Underwhelming overall in the pantheon of greats, but that guy had a lot of really solid running games.
Oh
And
yeah.
so yeah, and you have to have a running back kind of like McCaffrey is right now, what he specializes in right now. But you've got to
Yes.
have a running to make the West Coast work. You've got to have a running back that can catch passes. Now that's
Yes.
not Gus Edwards, and that's probably why we have these other running backs out there
Mm.
in the Baltimore backfield. But yeah, the running game paved the way, literally paved the way for Lamar to toss to about 6 different receivers.
Yes, yes. And at a certain point, because they were getting dominated so bad, we had Tyler Huntley sighting who passed the ball to Odell. So Odell
Yeah,
finally got his
yeah,
touchdown. And it was Odell's birthday, funny enough.
nice, nice, nice.
He got a touchdown
And
on his birthday.
Mark Andrews again playing solid tight end. So there you
Oh
go.
yes, yes, we like that. But what we also like, by the way, because we kind of talked about this a little bit with our homie Josh McDaniels getting fired, we had the
What the
Raiders.
fuck happened? And then they turn around and win.
They won. It was a massive, massive win for the
That's a
Raiders.
goofy
I have
game.
never
I
seen
hate
them
that
so
I hate
dominant.
that we're going to talk about it.
We're gonna talk. I don't know. I don't know. I kind of like seeing it. You had the Raiders win 30-6 versus the Giants. How did you feel about that game? I didn't watch it. I saw the highlights, but it was
Same
cool to see
here.
the Raiders get a
There's
good
no
win.
way I was watching that game. Are you
No,
kidding me? Fuck.
nobody was watching that game. Well, at least they won. You know what I mean? I like seeing that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
really
yeah.
feel about it.
I think the story there is like, what the hell's going on with Brian Daboll? I mean, like his quarterback situation and his offense is just pathetic right now. Saquon Barkley is the only thing that's consistent, and how do you get that wrong, right? I mean, shit.
It's crazy.
But yeah, they got a funny guy, a backup right now because Danny Dimes is still out.
Yeah, it's Tommy DeVito or some shit like
Yeah,
that.
Tommy DeVito from Jersey, playing for the New York Giants. I
Bro,
mean, talking
I
about your
saw an article.
homeboy.
He lives with his mom. His mom makes his bed, and his mom like folds his laundry. I'm like, damn, the man is a whole
Probably
24-year-old man.
the guy could probably take public transit to the stadium.
Yes.
Um, get his mom to drop him off. But so yeah, we've got this classical guy who was born to play for the Giants, at quarterback right now, but he was looking pretty unspectacular. He got sacked like about 6 times or so,
Oh, I just
intercepted a couple of times. Just
saw.
really bad stuff happening out there with the Giants at the moment, unfortunately, and that's a shame because
Yeah.
we sung Dayball's praises last year. We
Yes.
thought it was his time,
Yes.
but that franchise is looking really bad right now.
I'm telling you right now, when we really can talk about the Jets as the best New York team right now, we are
Hmm.
in a weird world. And when I'm saying New York, I'm talking about the whole state. Even I take the Jets over the Bills.
And, and
So,
and the Jets took a terrible loss too.
oh, the Chargers, yes.
Yeah,
How did
yeah,
you feel about that one, man?
well,
You
I was disappointed for one, and also a little bit surprised because the Chargers have been very underwhelming of late on both
Yeah,
offense and defense. So to see them come, I was looking at the box score, trying to figure out where the hell did all these points come from because I can't see anything. Right?
yes,
Herbert
sir.
tossed for something like well less than 200 yards, like 175 yards. One pick,
Mm-hmm.
one TD or something like that. I don't even know. I think it was like zero TDs. He didn't even pass for any TDs. So I'm like, where the hell did these
No,
points come from?
it was mostly in the run game. Austin Eckler had a big game, my guy.
Yeah,
Austin Eckler had a huge
he had
game.
a couple of
He had
he had
14
a couple of
carries, 47 yards, 2 touchdowns. Yo,
yeah. So
yeah,
a pretty
touchdown.
underwhelming
Mhm.
night. A pretty underwhelming
Yeah,
night for Austin Eckler. But he did
yeah.
have the two TD plunges. So if you're counting in fantasy, like he rescued that. But
Oh
only
yeah.
47 yards, and I don't think he had a whole bunch of passing yards. But they did have a
No.
punt return for a touchdown just to open the
Yes.
scoring. And then they
Yes.
got the two Austin Eckler plunges, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that was it for their points besides field goals.
The
So
passing exactly. The passing game wasn't doing much. It was mostly Austin Eckler and that punt, that kickoff return or punt
right.
return, whatever it was.
And so
There was not a big offensive game. No,
So,
not at all.
so yeah. So in fact, the Jets actually did what I thought they would do.
Mm.
Not as well as I thought they would do, but like they only allowed 2 touchdowns and a couple of field goals, so they allowed about
Yeah,
20 points.
yeah.
The defense did, and so. But the thing is that just Zach Wilson was really fucking bad. Like he was
Oh,
useless. He could not generate any points despite opportunities because you look statistically at the game. It was a
yeah.
fairly even game. The Jets did their part on defense for the most part, except for that punt
Mhm.
return. But come on, man. If Zach Wilson can't generate 24 points a game, 22, 23 points a game, I mean, that's just average.
That's it's bad. It's really bad because if you looked at the flow of the game looked pretty competitive. It looked closer than actual the box score says. It's just
Exactly.
that Zach Wilson kept fumbling the ball,
Yep.
kept causing turnovers, and when you get turnovers in a game like that,
Yep.
that's a premium. So
Yep.
if you're the Jets quarterback, and if you look at some previous games, the Jets have been winning some games. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's purely because of the defense and the games that they did win. Zach Wilson did not turn the ball over.
Right. He
If
managed.
Zach Wilson doesn't turn the ball over, they win. It's almost like a pattern, dog. But he turns the ball over, they lose.
Well, and we talked about this just 2-3 weeks ago. We talked
We
about
did.
this.
We did.
We talked about how if Zach Wilson can just manage the game and prevent the turnovers, just prevent the turnovers, the
Facts.
defense will probably do the rest,
That's
right?
it. The defense can even score. It's just don't turn the ball over, and that's what happened in the game. He turned the
Get,
ball over, and Chargers took advantage. Chargers are
get
4-4 right now. I'm
I
shocked.
mean, Zach Wilson, for the love of God, just get your 236 yards, your one TD, and 0 picks. The running
Yeah,
game and the defense will probably give you another couple TDs. And there's 21 points. You should be able to stand on that with that
that,
defense.
that's what I'm saying. And for me, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, is that why Aaron Rodgers is rushing his rehab? Is that why? Because he sees the bullshit that's going on? Because for me, in the back of my mind, I'm like, bruh, this season is a wash. Aaron Rodgers, sit your 40-year-old ass down and wait.
Yeah.
Because there's no need to rush this. Because what
Yeah.
I'm looking is that Jets O-line is so trash, bro. By the way, like the video on your way in, guys. I appreciate y'all for checking out our
Yeah.
channel and checking out our video. But if I'm 41 years old, right, and I'm watching that O-line, and I'm like watching what the O-line is letting happen to Zach Wilson, I'm sitting my ass down. I'm waiting till next year when my general manager, Joe Douglas,
Yeah.
gets a good offensive line. And here's something interesting I saw this morning. I saw Devontae Adams is in New York because the Raiders are playing the Jets this week.
Yep. They
And,
are.
and Devontae took a selfie with Aaron Rodgers. They're hanging out in New York late last night. What do you think about that, Unc? Reunion?
It's natural that they would do that, but I mean, what the hell is he doing? What was Devontae Adams thinking about doing that's like Brady going to that wedding, Robert Kraft's wedding last year. The night before games are sacred. You're supposed to be resting your ass. Like, don't be fucking hanging out.
Oh, they were drinking. They were sipping. They were sipping something. Some adult beverage.
Yeah. I mean, but on the other hand, they're fast friends. I totally understand why they would be doing it. And but what are you needling at? You're trying to ask if he's trying to bring him to New York. Well, of course he is. I bet you every single time Aaron Rodgers talks to Devontae Adams, he's like, how quickly can you get the fuck out of there?
Oh man, I'm telling you, if I was a fly on that wall, dog, I'm telling you right now, Aaron Rodgers is recruiting his ass off, dog,
You
because
be.
he wants Devontae there, and I think Devontae wants to come through because
Why
the
not?
Raiders are I don't think Aiden O'Connell is the solution that Devontae
Listen,
Adams wants.
if you're Devontae Adams, the
Yeah.
question is like, you're probably not going to a Super Bowl in either franchise immediately anytime soon. But
Mhm.
wouldn't you rather be getting passes from this guy who like knows you like nobody else? Wouldn't
Yeah.
you rather have mediocrity in New York City than fucking Vegas? I mean, Vegas is fun, but the novelty wears off quick enough, right? New York's a major media town. Your prospects for endorsements, everything is better in New York. If
Oh
I'm
yeah.
Devontae Adams, I just want to find my way back to Rodgers, man.
Hey man.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't blame him because the Jets, like we talked about, I don't know why, but we've been talking about the Jets a lot. We like that team. I think we both like it. But
Yeah.
I look at the
We
Jets, and
see
the
a lot
first
of
thing I think
potential
about
there.
is they're a few moves away. We see a lot of potential, man. They're a 4-4 team, but they could easily see them being 5-3. You know what I mean? They have the
Yeah.
potential. And I think they're a year away. That's what I think. You know what I mean? At least that's my
Yeah.
point of view.
Yeah. I think I never expected the Jets to, make some kind of Super Bowl run this year with
No.
Rodgers. I just thought it would be a 2 or 3 game improvement on last year, but they might do that by themselves anyways. And I think that's the theme that we've been carrying on with this year.
Yeah.
It's just a basic respect for the Giants, or the Jets, I should say, that after losing Rodgers the way they did, going right back to square one, basically right back to where they were last December.
Yeah,
And still being on pace for a winning season. I think that's impressed a lot of people, and I think
yeah.
it's certainly garnered my respect.
I agree. It garnered my respect as well, man. And you know what time it is, man. You know exactly what time it is.
Time to get busy, y'all.
The T Swift segment of the week, man.
Oh fuck! Here we go.
Chiefs beat
Now,
the Dolphins 21-14. Obviously, our bestie T Swift was not there, but the Chiefs beat out a top AFC team. How did you feel about that, my G?
Well, you indicated a tone of surprise that you were surprised to see that. I was not. That was pretty
Oh,
much exactly the result I expected to see. I
okay.
expected the Chiefs to take advantage of the opportunity to once again make another statement, right? Like some
Mhm.
of these other games we saw last week,
Right.
here on a neutral field, no less. Right?
Germany. Yeah.
In Germany. So on a neutral field, not Arrowhead Stadium.
Mhm.
Okay, so not in down in Hard Rock, not in Miami, right? So this was a neutral stadium,
Yes, sir.
and I mean, it sort of it followed the script. I think what was the Chiefs I think beat the
It
point
was like
spread.
it was 21 to 14. It was a very
So
dominant
so
defensive game by the Chiefs,
7
actually.
points.
Yeah.
7 points, seven
7 points.
points, guaranteed they covered the spread because the point spread was probably never more
Oh
than
yeah,
two and a
they
half or
did.
3.5. I can't remember, but
Yeah,
so
they
it was a
covered.
solid win. And again, if you look at the
Mhm.
box score, fucking game was over before halftime. They won
Oh,
21-14,
yep,
and they had all
yep.
21 points before the end of the first half.
They
Right?
did. They did. And Mahomes didn't have a crazy game. He won
No
85 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was mostly a defensive game. If you actually watch
game
the flow
manager,
of it,
game
game
manager
manager.
Mahomes. Who thought we would ever
Mhm.
say that, huh? Game manager Mahomes. But that's all he's got to do this year with that defense firing the way it is. And they showed you
Yes,
that. They
yes,
showed
they
you
did.
that. They put up 21 points in the first half, put it on cruise control for the second half, right?
Yeah.
Tags and the boys were going to get some points. They were going to get their points. But good luck getting 21 unanswered against the Chiefs.
And I'm telling you right now, you would think that it would be a huge Tyreek Hill game. Tyreek Hill was quiet, man. 8
Mm-hmm.
receptions for 62 yards. The defense shut him down. And we've
He
talked
can't.
about this.
He can't
People have
do it
not
all.
talked about this, but you and me have been on this early. The Chiefs defense is the reason they're winning games. We've talked about
Yep.
this very early in the season, and I have not seen a lot of commentators talking about this. This is why y'all need to tap in with Unc and Phew, because
There
we're
you
gonna
go.
tell you what's going on. Let's go, Unc.
What's
What
up?
do you think, man? The defense, bro.
Well, for me, when I looked at him this year, I was like trying to figure out because after what happened last year, where
Yeah.
the defense finally joined the offense around week 10
Mm,
to go on the Super Bowl run, and I
yeah.
was just sort of asking myself, okay, so which way is it going to go this year? Is the offense going to catch up to the D, or is the D going to catch up to the offense? Right? Because it seems like it's one or the other every year. And so,
Facts.
yeah, we just started talking about it early, saying like, no, I think this year it's going to be the offense is going to catch up to the D because the D is like we were pointing out they were lights out after week 3.
We did. We called it out early. Yeah, we
Yeah,
did. We
yeah,
did.
yeah. Well, because after that opening week loss to
Mm-hmm.
Detroit, like right
Yep.
away, people started talking about like, well, where's Mahomes? Where are the points? Where and that wasn't really happening. But at the same time, they weren't losing. So we started
They
saying,
were
hey,
not.
what's going on here, right? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's the D, yo.
I'm telling you, and Taylor Swift is definitely getting the D from Kelsey. It is what it is. You know what I mean? We're talking about the D, and we're telling
Listen,
you right now,
I
football is pretty simple. Good
right,
defense. You don't need to throw to get 30, 40 points. You don't need to be like Miami. Good defense, run game, time of possession, low
yeah.
turnovers. Go ahead, Uncle. Mm-hmm.
Well, given that this is the Taylor Swift segment, I have a fascinating poll for you that ties into a few other different themes that we've discussed on the
Okay,
podcast over the years. Yes,
okay.
indeed.
Let's go. Let's go.
Yes. There was a poll on Trailer as the relationship is being dubbed. All right,
Mm-hmm.
Travis and Taylor Swift. It's Trailer.
Trailer. Okay, I like that.
So, anyways, but there was a poll taken.
Okay.
Did NFL fans think that this was getting to be too much already? And let's just get back to the football. All right. A
Yeah.
question that people have been asking from the very beginning, right? I mean, this thing's got a shelf life. I mean, come on, you're not going to tie
Okay.
into this forever. Anyway, so a fascinating statistic came out. On
Mm.
average, 85% of fans wanted them to sort of like stop focusing in on like spending so much time paying attention to this. It's getting ridiculous. Let's get back to the football type of thing.
Yeah, of course.
Guess what the demographic and gender breakdown was?
I don't know. Go ahead. I don't know.
86% of the men and 84% of the women. both the men and the women are saying the same
They
goddamn thing.
agreed.
Get back to the football, right? Because we've talked about this. We've talked about this.
Yeah, we
Are
have.
female fans of the NFL legit fans, or are they just there for the commercials, or are they just there to hang out with their boyfriends? Bullshit. The women that watch the NFL watch it because they love football. And if you're
Yeah.
looking for a stat to prove that, that Taylor Swift one is all over,
Yeah.
right?
You're
Right in
absolutely
alignment with the
wow.
men.
I never expected that, but you're right about that because the female fans, the people who, you know what I mean, like actually watching football. By the way, shouts out to my boy Ryan Simpson in the chat. This is my boy. Thank you for viewing in, tap in,
Yeah,
man. We do
boy.
this every we do this Sunday 10 a.m. 10:30 a.m. Is that what we locked into? But yeah,
Yeah,
shout out
dude.
to you, Ryan. This is my dog. Grew up with him. He's ugly as fuck, but I love him. I love that
God
dude.
love the ugly, man. Look at
Yeah, I
me.
mean, hey man, look at me. Me, I ain't no Michael B. Jordan, but hey, I do what I can do.
Yeah,
But
man.
you're
No,
right about that. Unc. You're right about that. Because the female football fans I know, like I know a big Eagles fan. Her name is
Mhm.
Vanessa. She loves the Eagles, fam. She loves the Eagles,
Yeah,
and when they won, she literally cried for almost 10 minutes. So she was so happy.
nice, nice,
She's
nice.
there for the football. She's not there for halftime. She's not there
Yeah,
for
and
the BS. You know what I
and
mean? She's there to watch the game. She's a huge fan of Jalen Hurts. Huge
and
fan
I
of the Eagles. Huge fan. You know?
and yeah. So I
Mm,
found that statistic to be very telling,
mm,
and a great statistic. I was really happy to see that type of alignment because it sort of puts the kibosh on a
mm,
lot of these tropes that female fans are there for something other than the football. No,
mm.
they're there for the football. They like football,
Yes,
right?
they do. Yes, they do. They're
Hmm.
there for watch football. And when we're talking about football, man, we got to talk about some fantasy football advice. And you kind of talked about that a little bit earlier
Yeah, on
in the
Wheaton.
podcast about Keaton Mitchell from the Ravens.
Yeah,
But what do you have in terms of fantasy football advice? I know in a lot of leagues the trade deadline is close or it
yeah,
has
it's
already
over.
passed.
Pretty much
What do you
over, I think.
I think it's yeah. I don't know when, but it's pretty close. When any advice for the home stretch, as people get ready for the playoffs, as people get ready for seeding, what do you think people should look out for, Unc?
Well, okay, so there's some interesting trends, I suppose, in fantasy right now.
Mhm,
I'm going to talk about some positives and some disappointments because we're sort of getting into that time of the year.
for
Yeah,
sure.
and if your trade deadline hasn't already passed, it's going to be within the next week,
Yeah,
and certainly based on it depends on how deep your league is. Our league is 14 teams, so trust me, man, like that waiver wire, there's some really slim pickings on there. So
yeah,
a trade, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but a trade is really your only option to get new talent, breathe new life into your team if it's flagging right now.
yeah.
But that's not always an easy thing to do. But
Mhm.
there are a couple things I'm noticing. Washington has been an interesting team this year. They have
Oh,
been very productive at times. In real football terms, they're kind of a little bit disappointing. I thought they might have more wins than they're getting this year. But as
yeah.
far as fantasy purposes go, you'll never guess. Like he's one of the only few players that is actually a sort of a top 10 point producer that's available in our league. Sam Howell, the quarterback
Mm.
for Washington. But he blows
Wow.
so damn hot and cold, right? One week the guy's scoring 31 points, the next week he's scoring 8, right? So it has a low ceiling and a high floor and a lot of risk, but that offense does produce points when it's going in, and they're playing Seattle this weekend. So I'm actually expecting Sam
Oh,
Howell and Terry McLaurin both to have good weeks. Terry McLaurin's rounding into shape too. I believe he's produced double-digit games at wide receiver for Washington 3 out of the last 4 weeks.
mhm. Yeah.
So, yeah, Terry McLaurin and Sam Howell are probably going to do well this weekend in that Seattle game. I'm expecting a lot of points to be scored there. Um,
Nice.
a big disappointment for me in fantasy, though, is has been the performance of Bijan Robinson in Atlanta. For all the hype and for the draft capital it took to acquire that guy, I think he went seventh overall in our league. He was
Yeah.
definitely a top
100.
round talent. Yeah, people were
Mm.
expecting Eric Dickerson, and they haven't received him at all. He's like number 14 among running backs, right? Guys
Oh,
guys like Zach Moss are shooting the lights out compared to him. Zach Moss has
yeah.
been on the flip side of that story. Zach Moss is like the third overall running back or
He's been
second or third
amazing.
overall running back, top
Yo.
10 fantasy player, scoring
Mhm.
like 15 points a game almost. So,
Good.
yeah, yeah, Zach Moss would be a good one to target if you're looking to trade. Someone that's willing,
Mm.
if you had the right wide receiver help or something like that for somebody else. Zach Moss is a good guy to target because his schedule is fairly good going down the road because they're playing what AFC South teams a lot.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, you know who's a surprise though in fantasy is
Okay.
Adam Thielen. Adam Thielen has very quietly put
Feeling. Yes.
on a lousy team. Adam
Terrible
Thielen
team.
has quietly put himself to be around the number 7 wide receiver in fantasy, consistent with where he's been in the past.
He
Uh,
actually he's been playing on the screen. He looks good too. He actually is
yeah,
number one receiver
so
in Carolina. Yo.
Adam Thielen is another one to quietly target if you're looking for trades, because a lot of people
Mm.
aren't, thinking of him and, okay, sure, package him up on the right deal, right? Adam Thielen is probably going to, because these teams, like, they got
Yeah.
nothing left, they got nothing to lose, right? So as you go down the
Sure.
road, right, they're going to be throwing about. Carolina's probably going to be throwing it like crazy all the rest of the year, right?
Oh
Trying to
yeah.
catch up.
They're going
Where's
for
Thielen?
broke.
Right? Where's
Yeah.
Thielen on the other end of that ball? Right? So,
Yeah.
yeah. And of course, they got rid of DJ Moore, who's another
Yeah.
guy who's quietly having a very good year at wide receiver in Chicago. Right, doing everything that we
Yes.
thought he
Yes.
would do after a rough start. He didn't start off very strong, but he's been doing quite well in recent weeks. So that one's
Mm.
interesting. Um, Another one, if you're looking for help at a tight end, the guy I
Mm.
noticed that's been coming on in the last 3 or 4 weeks is the guy in Dallas. I think
Okay.
he's a second-year player, Jake Ferguson. He's got
Yes. Yeah.
touchdowns in 2 out of the last 3 weeks, and is starting to get his receptions and his yardage are on an uptick. So he might be
Mm.
available in your leagues if you're looking for help there.
Okay.
Um, the, the other one, of course, is that time of the season to talk about Tyler Heineke. He had a service.
Yeah, he's starting. He's starting for Atlanta now.
He had a serviceable week last week, typical Taylor Heineke style.
Yeah.
So he just went in there as a super sub and scored like something like 250 yards and a couple touchdowns and the obligatory pick. But
Of course.
if you're looking for some help at quarterback, if you're in a super flex league or something like that where quarterbacks are picked up, or just like our league where we got 14 teams and everybody has a backup, so that's 28 out of 32 quarterbacks picked up, right? Some
Pretty
people
much.
keep, right? So if you're looking for some help, you got an injury somewhere, he's probably going to be good rest of the season,
Hmm.
as we've
Hmm.
seen in the past, like he was with Washington that year. He kind of has a bit of a shelf life, about half a season of effectiveness before he
Yes.
sort of reverts back into a pumpkin backup, right? So
Yeah.
he might help you get into the playoffs, right? So that's one guy
Mhm.
in fantasy you could be looking at. Um, the fantasy positives. Who else did I see that was interesting here too? Yeah, just an observation that Mostert and ETN are quietly
Mm.
having our number 2 and number 3 at running back after McCaffrey. So that's a bit of a surprise.
Oh,
Bit of a
okay.
surprise for people. So don't be shy
Yeah.
about, especially ETN, keeping him in there. Start him every single week. Mostert as well too. Achane apparently is coming back. I know that makes you
Oh,
happy.
okay.
Achane is due to come back. So forget about all the advice on Jeff Wilson Jr. Just as he was finally emerging again,
Yeah.
he's probably going to go back to the bench with Achane coming back. So it's
100%.
going to be Mostert and Achane. So look out for that. That'll be interesting. So and AJ Brown, your surprising wide receiver champ so far this year. Him and Tyreek Hill, I think are your two tops on that one. So and Kelsey has finally found his way to the back of the tight end ranks as well too. So
Mhm.
Kelsey, Mark Andrews, Hawkinson. So that's playing out kind of as we imagined as well too. Um,
Yeah.
Cole Kmet doing actually decently at tight end as well in
For the Bears.
Chicago.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
Chicago.
So those are all some interesting players that I think are out and about in the fantasy world right now.
Mhm.
But you're at that time of the year, man. You
Earn the
gotta play your
points.
studs. You gotta play your studs, and you gotta play the
Mhm.
guys that the horses that have brought you so far, right? Guys like
Mhm.
Nakua, all
Yes.
right. Those guys have turned out to be for real. They weren't flashes in the pan early in the season, so you got to keep riding those guys, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So yeah, that's how I'm looking at fantasy at this point of the season.
I'm rocking with it. I'm rocking with it, man. Keep listening to Unc for fantasy advice because
Yeah,
Uncle Football knows what he's talking about. He has a few championship belts in
yeah,
the
dude.
back there in that closet, man. The man knows what he's talking about. But let's see what you're talking about, the lines and spreads. And I'm gonna pull up some of how it looks. We're using Vegas Insider to look at the odds. And
Hmm.
Unc, when we talk about lines and spreads, how is it looking for week 10? What are some things or some games as I pull it up on the screen right now do you think, hey, let's put some money on it? Obviously, we can't put any money on the New England versus Colts game. It's already playing right now. Colts are winning. Colts are up 7-3. But what are you looking at in terms of the other games? We got Cleveland, Baltimore, Houston, Bengals, Jags versus
Yeah.
San Fran. I think that's going to be a great game. What are you looking at in terms of the lines and spreads where you think, let's give that a try? You know what I mean?
Well, I'll tell you what
Mhm.
game I would not have put any money on under any circumstances, and that's that Indy Pats game in Germany. For Christ's sakes, God knows what that shit sandwich is going to yield.
So
Yeah, the games I targeted were the Browns and the Ravens. That's going to be a really fucking fascinating game. I can't wait to see that.
I
Pardon my
agree.
language. But so that's the
Mhm.
Browns traveling to Baltimore,
Yes, sir.
and that started out as a 5.5 point game. It's gone up to 6.5 points. Right,
Yes, sir.
so betters are clearly expecting the Ravens to handle the Browns,
Wow.
almost to and it's underneath 7 points, so it's less than a touchdown, so that's very winnable. That's a nice looking spread for Baltimore fans, I think.
Oh yeah,
Now
I'm taking that.
the
Mhm.
fascinating point is that as the point spread has gone up, the over under expectations have gone down.
Oh,
So
okay.
I know, right? It started out as a 40-point game. It's down to 38.5, right? With a
Oh,
6.5 point spread, right? So that kind of means that they're expecting a kind of a defensive game and a solid win by Baltimore. And I think that sounds reasonable to me, given the way Baltimore's been playing of late.
mhm.
And like the Browns can be had, as we saw from that Indy game.
Oh yeah,
You can stack points up on the Browns,
they
but
can get
they
but
have
their
had a very
defense is
good
amazing. So you
they've
know,
had a very they've had a very good defensive season. But you can stack points up on the Browns, and if there's any team that can stack up points, it's Baltimore right now.
yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
I'm rocking with Baltimore on that one to cover at home.
Yes, sir. I'm rocking with that
And
too. Hmm.
my guess though is that they'll probably go over on that. I mean, fuck, man, Baltimore might score 38.5 points by their own. By their own self.
Bro, that's how it's been looking these weeks. A lot of 35 point plus games from Baltimore. But I'll
Baltimore,
take it over as well because I think Cleveland can quietly put up some points as well. Because
yeah,
last week we didn't talk about this, but last week Deshaun Watson had a pretty good game actually.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah,
surprising. So
yeah.
it's possible on both ends. Anyways, any other games you're looking at? You're like, oh, that's interesting
Well,
to me.
the other one I think you'd requested was the Texans at the Bengals,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. That's the
That's an
Bengals. Mhm.
interesting. That's an interesting one too. That one, it's fascinating. That one started out at 6.5 points, the opposite scenario to Baltimore.
Oh,
They started out at 6.5 points, and that point spread has dropped down to 5.5.
five and a
So
half.
people are expecting the Texans to make a game of it. So less than a touchdown. But to me, less than a touchdown. The more less than a touchdown you
Oh,
give Cincinnati, the more I want Cincinnati. Like take Cincinnati in
oh,
this game, I
okay,
believe. Yeah, because
okay, okay.
part of it too. Well,
Mm,
the Texans are on the road for one, but
yes.
also the Texans have a raft of injuries right now. right? Damon
Oh,
Pierce is out. Nico
oh.
Collins is out, right? So, yeah. Stroud's been a great success story, but I don't think it's his week. I don't think it's his week. I'm pretty sure the
Mm.
Bengals are going to take care of the Texans in reasonably short order, decisively. I expect T. Higgins and Jamar Chase to ball out. Boyd will probably get in there too. Mixon will probably put in 60, 70 yards, probably 50 or 60, maybe even
Yeah,
a touchdown. You don't know. But yeah, I'm expecting that Bengals air game. And even Burrows himself, he's shown himself to be over that calf injury. I expect Baltimore to win that game decisivly. Get
the
the lead and
Bengals.
cover that 5.5 point spread. And they're calling for
Mhm.
47 points as an over under, which has actually
Oh,
gone up 2 points. So
okay.
they are expecting some fireworks down there, but I think most of it's going to come from the Bengals.
So the Bengals smack Houston. That's what you're
Yeah,
guessing,
and
and
I
it's
might take the
over.
under on that. 47 points seems high.
So you might take the under. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. And you know what? That the reason I even mentioned these two teams. I'll stop sharing. By the way, thank you, Unc, for your lines and spreads of the week. If y'all want
I
to
got
win
one
some
more.
bucks. Oh, you got one more? Oh, okay, my
I got
bad.
one more, buddy. This is the
Stop
most
doing that.
fascinating game of the week. Yeah, the
Oh, talk to me.
49ers on the road
Yeah,
against the
Jags.
Jags. Now, what
Yes,
time is
that's
that
the game
game?
I'm
That's a
looking
one
at.
o'clock. That's a 1 o'clock game too, is it not?
It's a 1 o'clock game. I'm shocked. It should be Sunday night football because this is an amazing game
Right.
coming. But anyways, go ahead.
So, so we got a West Coast team on the road in the early game.
Yes,
That's
we
often a
do.
trap. That's often a
Oh,
trap because
oh,
that's like playing 10 o'clock in the morning for them.
it's a 10
You know,
o'clock. Oh, 10 a.m. game.
no,
Yes,
no,
it
no.
is.
It would feel like a 10 o'clock game if you're coming from the West Coast.
If you, well, are they playing it in San Francisco or are they playing it in
No, they're
Jacksonville?
playing it in Jacksonville, Duval
Oh,
County. So I'm
okay.
saying that for the 49ers, it's going to
Mhm.
feel like a little weird because they're going to be playing at 10 o'clock in the morning as far as their body clock is concerned. And that's
The body's gonna feel like 10 a.m., but it's actually gonna
right.
be 1 p.m. It's gonna feel like a morning game for them. Yes.
It's
Okay.
typically been a trap game for
Oh.
West Coast teams coming to the East Coast to play the 1 o'clock window. So,
Mm.
okay. And now, but this, like, we got to think of also the competing narratives here.
Yeah.
Is like the Jags have been on a remarkable run since they went to Europe.
Five
They
game win streak.
they've won a lot of games people thought for sure were going to be trap letdown games for them, and instead they've come out firing on all cylinders and managed to eke out some important wins.
Yes, they have.
They're 6-2 straight up, and I think against the spread it's like 4-0 or something like that recently. I'm not sure, but they're
They're
like
giving
very
the
solid.
Jags it's 3 points. They're giving 3 points to San Francisco, the field goal game, I think.
That's it, right? And
Mhm.
so and so they're like they're a home they're pardon me, a road favorite, I should say.
They're
So
a
that's
road
a
favorite.
challenging position to be in.
Yeah.
So I decided to break this down by saying, okay, like let's just go back to the points for, points against, and see like where these two line up.
Point
And when
differential. Hmm.
yeah, and so like the 49ers score about 27 points a game plus versus the Jags score about 24 and change, right?
Hmm.
24 plus per game, right? Jags allow, I think it's 19 and a half points a game. San Francisco allows on average about 17 and a half points a game. Add that all up, and that's about a 5.25 point game difference. Take out the 1.5 for the home team that's sort of built into the point spread. Now
Yes,
you're
sir.
looking at 3.75 points, 3.5 points is sort of the difference between the two of them in this scenario. That
Mm.
tells me that the Niners at a 2.5 to 3 point favorite is probably appropriate. And given
Mm.
the narrative that they're sort of due, like this has been a surprising 3 game losing streak going into the bye. They're coming
Mm.
off their bye, but they're on the road against a surprisingly resilient Jaguars team. But I still
Yes,
got to
sir.
go with the 49ers to break out of their slump and to cover the spread. Uh,
Nice,
and
nice,
and
nice.
yeah,
And it's been rumored that Debo's playing. Debo Samuel's playing, by the way.
is he? Okay. See,
Debo
there we
Samuel is
go.
playing. So he's confirmed. He's
And
active. Yep.
and I would probably take the under in that 44.5 points. I can
Oh,
see
you
this
take
being
the
like a
under.
20.
Okay.
I can see this being like a 24-20 game for San Francisco, or the other way
Okay.
around. But under the 45 points, I can see
All
that.
right. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, you know what?
Well, there
That's a
we
good
go.
one because I think that might. You know what? That actually rolls into what I was going to talk about. That's
You
my
should
game of the week, man. That's
mhm,
my game
you
of the
should
week.
you should read the Vegas insider notes on that game when we come off the podcast. It's interesting the way they describe the betting action, how it moved this week. Um, some
Okay.
games they have a commentary on it.
Mm,
Some days they don't. But the Vegas insider notes on the betting action during the course of the week are fascinating. Yeah, look into that game.
so
Read the notes on that game. They got a lot to say about that game. They're calling it the game of the week for bettors.
that I'll definitely check that out. What it says about the notes, but in my point of view, man, I think that is the game of the week, man. We
Yeah,
are
I
gonna
think so too.
learn. We're
I
gonna
think so
learn a
too.
lot. I thought
Yeah,
I thought at first I thought it was gonna be the Bengals versus the Texans, but that seems like maybe it might be like a shootout because quiet as kept. CJ Stroud, I think, might be an MVP candidate, but we can talk about
or
that later
certainly
on.
rookie of the year. Certainly,
Rookie of the year.
is he a
He's
rookie this
pretty much
year?
bagged it. He is a
He's a
rookie. Yeah,
rookie.
he's
Yeah,
pretty much
I
bagged the
think
rookie of the year. I'm like,
I
wow,
think
man.
CJ Stroud is the rookie of the year. Certainly, given
Mm.
how the bias, like we pointed out a million different times elsewhere, towards quarterbacks in general as an offensive position. I'm sure CJ Stroud has that rookie of the year wrapped up. Yeah, he's
Oh,
been great.
that's already backed up. It's not. We're even halfway in the season, and he's
Yeah,
not. People
but
are talking about him as MVP, and I'm like, if he
nah,
gets
nah,
to
nah.
go on a run,
That's way
I don't
overhyped.
know. Is it too
That's
early? Is
way
it too early?
that's that's way overhyped. Any rookie being MVP of the year, unless it's Eric Dickerson or you know what I mean, like or yeah, or Lawrence or somebody like that. But yeah, in that
Mhm.
Jags 49ers game, I think that
Yeah.
is probably the most underrated game of the week, and I think it's probably one of the more intriguing ones as far as I'm concerned. So
Oh
I'm very
yeah.
interested to see that, especially too, given how this is the time of the year that the Jags actually usually they tend to be late starters as well. Like I've considered the Jags to be kind of disappointing this
Oh.
year, despite that 4 game losing winning streak, and
Oh.
the way in which they won those 4 games over the last 5 to 6 weeks. The Jags have played very well, but I still don't think they're firing on all cylinders yet, and I think the best is yet to come with the Jags.
Oh, do you think there's more to come with the Jags? Do you think they have a higher ceiling, or they're
I
not
think
really?
I,
Oh.
I think they haven't achieved their ceiling for the season yet. Yes, I believe that.
Oh.
I think Calvin Ridley has underperformed,
Yes,
um,
I
and I
do
think
agree with
Lawrence hasn't been as fully effective as he's capable of being. So I just think that their offensive output lags a little bit. I think they're worth 2, 3 more points a game,
that.
but we'll have to see how that goes. Calvin Ridley has got to get back on track, and he's got to be dominant.
That's true. We haven't seen a big Calvin Ridley game since I think week 2 or even week 1.
Yeah,
So it's like kind of seems to me
the
like
first
what's
two
going on.
weeks. Yeah, the first 2, 3 weeks of the season, he put up some numbers, but he's kind of gone away, and even had
Yeah.
he had a close to a zero burger one day, which is like that's unacceptable for a wide receiver one.
And then I look at it like this: we're gonna learn a lot about the Niners, especially after this 3 game losing streak.
Yeah,
They've
yeah,
kind of lost their mystique as one of the best teams in the league. But that leads us to let's fly on this one right here, our top 5 power rankings as we go to overtime, and we close this out. By the way, thank you
yeah.
so much for watching the podcast. I want y'all to smash a like. Shouts out to my boy Ryan. I didn't even expect
Right
Ryan to
on.
come in, but I'm happy he came through.
One
Um,
love, Ryan. We appreciate it.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. What do you think, my guy? What are your top 5 power rankings? How does it look, your top 5 teams? Because it's
Yeah.
it's
Well,
it's weird, but it's I don't know. You know what I mean?
yeah. Well, I think the number one team probably has got to be the Chiefs right now.
Yep, yep,
Um, yeah, just because of the way they've been winning of late and that defense. So they're probably by far the most consistent team right now.
yep.
And then it gets to be a bit of a where, what do we make out of the rest, right?
Yeah,
I'd probably
yeah.
put the Eagles. I'd probably, believe it or not, I'd probably put the Eagles in at number 2, given that resilient win that they had against
Yeah.
um, that resilient win that they had against Dallas. That was a very important win. So I'd probably keep them at number 2 because again, 8-1 is real, right?
It
And then at
was real.
number three, I would definitely have Baltimore. where I
Yes.
had questions in the past about whether, where do they really belong in the top five? Were they on the edge of it? Do they belong in? Were they five A, B, C? No, they're number
Mhm.
three now. They've dislodged the Dolphins, the Tigers, the Lions, who you'd imagined belonged there at one point. But that would be my 1, 2, 3 right there, and then I
Nice.
would probably put.
See
Let's
where it gets
see.
weird, right?
I'd probably
Yeah.
put the Bengals in there, and then I'd probably round out the five with Cincinnati. They're not Cincinnati,
Okay.
but San Francisco. San Francisco
Nice.
or Cincinnati. Yeah, yeah. Those are the top five-ish teams I'm looking at right now.
For me, I got my Ravens as number one. I'm biased. I'm not gonna bullshit, but if we're going by results of what's happening right now, the quality of wins in recent weeks, I'm going Ravens number one, Chiefs number two, Eagles number three, Bengals number four, because the Bengals are on a run. So I
Yeah,
think the Bengals are really, really rising up,
yeah.
and
Their star is ascendant.
they are ascending, my guy, and it's scary as hell because this is what the Bengals and Burrow usually do at the end of the season. And my number five to round it out, I think it
That's
might.
always the hardest one.
It's not easy, right? Because you got the Lions in there, you got the Jags, which are like they're 6-2. Um, I might go with the Lions. I'll go with the Lions. I think the Lions still have a chance, but you could replace them with the Jags. You could even put the Cowboys because Cowboys did a great performance and a loss. It's a lot of people who can be in that 4 to 5 range. That's dicey. But the top three, top four teams is pretty much the same guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So we round this off with overtime with Unc and Phew. And something I wanted to talk about with the overtime, right? Um, there was a funny video, okay, of Bill Belichick leaving a room, leaving like a condo or apartment shirtless. Okay, I wanted to kind of talk about this, and I'm like,
really.
Bill
No, carry on,
Belichick.
carry on.
I just find it funny because you're
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
man,
No,
of all
I'm messing with
people,
you.
a 7-year-old man leaving a condo shirtless early in the morning. What was he doing, man?
I don't know, man. I don't know, but I mean, like, I think we
I,
can
I
all take a
know.
good.
I just found that shit funny because I'm like, man, what is he getting down in between his, one of his last seasons as the New England coach? I'm like,
I wouldn't even want to begin to speculate on all of that because I mean, the obvious thing is the obvious thing, and like
yeah, yeah.
I don't even want to. I don't even want to talk about that shit. I don't even want to imagine Bill. I don't even want to imagine Bill Belichick in any scenario where he's got his shirt off. This
Yeah,
is
I know. I randomly saw it going viral. I'll switch topics, bro. But another interesting thing, I don't know
Let's
what
talk
you
about
think
Joe
about this.
Smith's wife. She's got an interesting story.
Man, Joe Smith's wife. My man, what did you think about that one,
I
man?
saw. I didn't even know about it until I saw your podcast on it, and I was just
Yeah.
laughing so damn hard. Like, bro, you don't kiss him and you don't marry him. Why the fuck did you marry this woman? And now you're wondering why this is going on. Leopards don't change the damn spots, and there ain't no whore like an old whore, right? Like
Hey,
he get he knew what she was to begin with. He sought her out. He thought it was gonna go his way. It don't work like that. They're professional people. They're 3 steps ahead of you every step of the way. He pissed her off over something somewhere,
oh
and she
yeah.
told him, "Oh yeah, it's like that. Okay,
She went back to what she does best, man. And
don't
I'm
fuck
like,
with
bro, you met her. You met her like that. How do you think she was gonna be? You thought she was gonna
right,
change?
right. Like
Come
do
on,
not
bro.
don't fuck with sex workers. They are professionals. They are professional people. Respect them.
Respect us as we round out By the way, this is wisdom from Unc. Y'all should take notes and trust me. I've been in a situation like that before. Shouts out to the strippers. I was this close. I was this
Respect
close,
them, man.
but I was
Respect
like, I
them.
had to back off. I had to back off. I was tempted.
Respect them. They got more game than you can imagine.
They got game in their pinky more than some of us,
right?
man.
Way
And I'm
more. They got more game in that pinky than you're going to develop in a lifetime. Do not fuck with whores. Respect their flow
I
because they
think that's
got it
right.
over you, man. They got it all over you, and Joe Smith's gonna find that out.
Man, Joe. And you know what's interesting, man, with that video? I think she probably made more money because of that, because it became viral. So since it's viral, people are gonna check out her OnlyFans. So it's
Talk
almost like a
about
marketing scheme in a
talk
way.
about talk about the Streisand effect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing, right? If I'm Joe Smith, a
Mhm.
retired basketball player, right? I'm
Yeah.
looking at her OnlyFans. If I was Joe Smith, I'd be saying, "Well, honey, okay, well, let's see how much we can make out of this shit. I'll make this shit with you, right? I'm
Do
a
you need
good
a
looking guy.
photographer?
I'm a
Yeah.
good looking guy. You married me. You obviously like fucking me. Like, let's do it. Let's do it for real. I ain't got nothing else going on. I'm retired, right? Right? Let's get the pizza guy over here. I mean, fuck. And Joe Smith would be in charge of the situation, right? Because he would be he'd
Yes.
be a
He
like
would
he'd
be
be
like a man. He'd have some kind of management type of
right,
relationship.
and he
You know?
would and the one kryptonite that every man has when it comes to women like that is jealousy. If you act like you want to
Mm.
control her and you're jealous of what she's doing, she's immediately just going to tell you, "This is
He's
who I
gonna
was
be
when you
turned
met
off.
me. This
Yeah.
is who you. This is who you like. Oh, you want to get like that? Check me out. Watch this." So yeah, no. If he would have been much smarter to keep all of that on the DL for one,
On the
and
low.
and negotiate with his wife for a little bit of hand, right? And the only way he gets
Oh.
that is if she respects him, and the only way she's going to get his respect is by him respecting her, right?
And him realizing what she was in the first place and
And what she
going
finna do? And because
what
if
she's
she's
gonna
finna
do. Facts.
if she's finna go off and go do that, hell, he might as well literally get in there and make content with her because you ain't
Yeah,
gonna
get to
stop
the
it.
bag. Get to the
You know,
bag.
yeah, she's a, she's either gonna cuckold this guy or he can get
Uh,
in on it, right? What do you
Yo,
want to
yo.
be? You want to be champ or you want to be chump?
And that's what you get from overtime with Unc Phew. We the champs. Don't be
Poor
a champ.
management.
Don't be a Joe Smith. Manage your bitch, man. Let's be real. You
Manage your
manage your bitch.
business, not his
Manage
bitch.
your
Manage
business.
his business.
Manage your business. Do your thing.
'Cause
If
that
you
ain't no
know
bitch.
she,
That
if
ain't no
you
bitch. She's a sex worker, and she was
that's
when
true.
she was when he met her. Right?
True,
She ain't a
true, true,
she ain't a
true.
bitch. She ain't a bitch. She's fucking organized. She knows what she is.
She
Right?
knows if
And it
she
ain't
is,
a
she's getting
bitch.
to the bag. Okay, that's true.
She's a
I'm gonna pull
pro.
it back. She's a professional. She's a pro. She knows her business. She knows how to get to the bag. So
She
what
got
you
more
have to
balls
do
than
is you
Joe
have to
Smith.
get to the bag with her.
She
You know
got
what I
more
mean?
balls. She's got more balls than Joe Smith.
You might have a good point, Uncle, because she decided we're broke. I'm gonna go back to what made me rich.
Or maybe it's just, I was gonna say, or maybe it's just Joe Smith's balls that she got. One of the two.
Oh,
But yeah, bro. You
so
long as
Unc is on some big pimping, man. Unc is like, yo, man, if we gonna work together. We're gonna get this money together. I'm not gonna shame you for what you do. I'm gonna work with you, and we're gonna work and get to the
yeah,
pot.
dude. That's what I would do.
Okay, I would do the same.
Fuck naked. All right.
Man, I appreciate everybody for checking out the podcast, man. Like the video on y'all way out.
Like
It's
and
been on.
subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Share if you must. Shouts out to my boy Ryan for jumping into the chat. It has been Unc and Phew season 2, getting ready for week 10. We out.
One love, boys. One love.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We out of this.